Our story opens with Alyssa finding an abandoned newborn in the forest. Following this, she chooses to adopt her and call her Viola. We are then transported to the present timeline. Viola is all grown up, so much so that she looks like Alyssa's mother and not the other way around. Viola often gets mistaken for Alyssa's mother. Viola goes with her mother, Alyssa, to the market, where she begs for a crystal. Alyssa initially declines, but Viola's stubbornness eventually convinces her mother to give in. The seller explains the significance of teaching children discipline to Alyssa. Alyssa initially plans to be strict with Viola, but she changes her mind after witnessing the latter's politeness and kindness. Giriko and Luna, Viola's aunts, pay a visit. Following this, Alyssa starts griping about how much she looks like Viola's daughter. As a consequence, they propose she dress in a witchier, more mature manner. Alyssa, however, tells them that such outfits will make her appear like she's dressed in a costume. When Viola arrives, her aunts immediately begin gushing over her breasts. They continue by saying that when she was younger, they encouraged her to try to outdo her mother in terms of breast size. Following that, we learn that Alyssa was warned not to become a mother to Viola once she found her. Yet she was set on adopting her and bringing her up as her own. Viola is seen summoning a phoenix from the crystal. Her mother has instructed her to call upon something less odd, such as a cat or a bird. Viola worries that if she summons a cute animal, her mother will treat it with more love. Following this, she decides to tend to a young tree. Viola's phoenix is shown to be envious of the sapling. However, it is seen encouraging the plant to grow. Viola goes to see her Aunt Lyra. She goes on to tell her that she's there to purchase poisonous herbs to defeat the enemy. The scene then shifts to a touching conversation between Viola and Aunt Lyra. She continues by saying that Viola is still a young girl in her mind. Following this, she reminisces about the way Viola was as a newborn, the way she breastfed, and the way Alyssa felt like she wasn't being a good enough mother to Viola. Not long after, Alyssa comes into the shop in search of Viola. After hearing of her mother's efforts for her through her Aunt Lyra, Viola begins to shower her with affection. Fennel, a new character, appears in the episode's second half. His feelings for Alyssa are obvious, and Viola's animosity against him stems from her fear that he will steal her mother's love. Viola's extreme possessiveness towards her mother becomes apparent shortly thereafter. She pushes Alyssa to call Fennel her younger brother. She even prevents Fennel from sipping the tea that Alyssa prepared for him. Viola takes Fennel out on a mystical fishing trip. She tricks him into catching fish, which is a deception to begin with. When he pulls Phoenix from the portal, he thinks he's finally caught a big one, but he soon sees that Viola was just wasting his time and energy. Viola's aunts Luna and Giriko drop by. They present the three inappropriate familiars to Alyssa: a bondager, a masochist, and a shamer. Since it's not appropriate for Viola to see them, Alyssa urges the aunts to send them away. Following that, the aunts introduce Viola and Alyssa to a magical reminiscence book. A memory can be captured in the book like a snapshot. As a consequence, the four of them have a day of looking back with fondness and reminiscing. Viola gets sick. She doesn't do well with her cold and fever because she rarely gets sick. She attempts to force her way through it, but her body eventually gives out. Following that, Alyssa tends to Viola and inquires about her food preferences. Alyssa goes shopping for chicken after hearing that Viola wants chicken soup. When she finally gets home, she makes Viola a pot of her delicious chicken soup. Viola is already feeling better the day after she got sick. She then proves to Alyssa that she is fine by showing no signs of fever. Then, we go back in time a decade. When Viola was younger, she had a problem with bed spelling, which is when a person casts a spell while asleep in order to channel a magical being. Following this, Alyssa instructs her on the use of magic and the identities of other enchanted beings. Alyssa tries to help Viola see that mystical creatures are very large and that they cannot possibly care for one while she is still a little child, after Viola had told her that she wants to grow up around one. Fennel thanks Glind, his furniture-making orc friend. Following this, Fennel asks Glind if there's anything he can help him with in return. After this, Glind requests that he introduce him to a tall woman. After some convincing from Glind, Fennel finally agrees to do it. Following this, Fennel sets up a meeting between Glind and Viola. The three of them share an uncomfortable meal together in a cafe. Viola, on her way out, overhears Fennel encouraging Glind to make an effort to get closer to her. He tells him that if she gets into a relationship, he too will have a chance to form a connection with Alyssa. When he looks back and sees Viola behind him, he quickly escapes. Shortly after, Viola takes Glind home and introduces him to Alyssa as her friend. Alyssa is seen tending to an egg laid by a lizardkin. Viola soon joins her, and the two of them can be seen having a great time taking care of the egg. Later that day, the egg's lizardkin parents, Geeta and Malak, arrive to take their child home. They express gratitude to Viola and Alyssa for caring for their child. Before they leave, they give Viola an ostrich egg and ask her to get in touch with them when their lizardkin baby is born. She appears thrilled. Viola summons Fennel. She introduces him to her mystical companion creature, and it swallows him. Fennel finds out that Viola has left the house to go shopping. Following this, he decides to make the most of the situation and hurries to spend time with Alyssa. Fennel visits Alyssa at her home and finds Glyne there, tending to her needs. He suggests that Glyne go home so that he and Alyssa can have some time to themselves. Glynd, however, refuses to leave, claiming that Viola specifically requested his help in keeping her mother from Fennel. Fennel and Glynd have an argument over elves not long after. Glynd has high standards for elves, but Fennel completely squashes them. Viola interrupts their fight towards the end, but Fennel is slightly disappointed that he and Alyssa did not have any private time together. But the fact that Alyssa praised him makes him happy, and he takes that as a step in the right direction. Viola and Alyssa go to Uncle Pondo's potato farm. We find out that Uncle Pondo is married to Lyra and that she is now out of town. When Alyssa comments on the farm's peculiar potatoes, Pondo explains that Giriko's magic fertilizer is responsible. Alyssa then gets in touch with Giriko to have the matter fixed. Lyra arrives in the middle of the chaos and gets furious with Uncle Pondo for making things more difficult for her. Towards the end, Alyssa and Viola get to take some potatoes back home with them as they had hoped. Viola and Giriko have caused a potato war to break out outside of Alyssa's house. Eventually, though, everything calms down and Phoenix makes an appearance. A fairy by the name of Rosehype stops by Alyssa's house. She then asks Alyssa and Viola to lend a hand to her as she deals with her brother. We now follow Alyssa and Viola as they pay a visit to a young lady by the name of Anna Fiatio. She goes on to tell them about her garden not flowering anymore, which is a great cause of concern for her. Torino Umbrello, whom she plans to marry, is another person she introduces them to. Alyssa and Viola meet Rosie Hip's brother, the Meadowsweet fairy named Sweet Cheeks. Following that, the reason why the garden isn't blooming is because Sweet Cheeks doesn't want Anna to marry Torino. They decide to investigate Torino's background in order to determine whether or not he is dangerous to Anna after throwing around a few ideas. On doing some mirror snooping, they learn that Torino is an amazing guy. Consequently, Sweet Cheeks has no alternative but to give Anna the option to marry Torino. It is then revealed to Alyssa and Viola that Anna, being merely human, is unable to see the two fairies who help her. Since Sweet Cheeks has taken on a fatherly role with Anna, he naturally wants the best for her. Anna finds solace in the knowledge that her late father is watching over her in the garden, and Sweet Cheeks has no intention to strip her of this. While Anna and her fiancé Torino are in the garden towards the end of the episode, Sweet Cheeks causes the flowers to bloom once more. This symbolizes the fact that he has given them his blessing.